Okay, well, today we talked a little football with Russ Landy of the, he's a draft expert for the most part.
National Football Post.
Yeah, does a nice job with them. And it was interesting because I think the first question I asked was, we had talked to a couple of other guys who said this is the deepest draft that the NFL has seen in about 10 years. And I think you asked them what position groups were maybe the deepest of them all. And it was good news for the Seahawks.
Well, and he started it unprompted because he agreed with when you asked him about that. And so far, everybody's agreed that it's the deepest draft, so we'll take everybody's word for it. But when he started talking about how deep it was, he started with offensive linemen and guards. And if you're looking at the Seahawks, again, it's tough to nitpick a Super Bowl winner and the best team in the league, but their biggest area of need looks to be offensive line. When you've got Carpenter and McQuiston were in a rotation. Sweezy is still finding his way. Breno is a free agent. You don't know if he's going to come back. So
Russell Okung missed half the games because of injury.
Right, yeah. Max Unger, for his part,
missed a bunch of games,
too. He had the pec injury. So you look at it and say you're going to lose. Breno may or may not be back. McQuiston is also a free agent. You assume he's not going to be back. Carpenter's not an answer. And Sweezy's still a guy learning. That's your biggest area of need, whether they address it through the draft or free agency. It's good to hear that, there are guys that immediately come to mind. It's a very deep position in this draft, so the Seahawks wouldn't have to, as he said, he wouldn't expect them to spend their first-round pick, which will be the last one in the first round if they keep it, on an offensive lineman, but they could get quality offensive linemen along the way, and he listed a guy from UCLA, I think Xavier Paafilo was his name, and another kid out of Mississippi State. So he seemed excited, or seemed to think that they would have a lot of luck if they were going to address that need in the draft, that it is in fact very deep as far as guards and linemen go.
What's interesting about it, though, and maybe is a little bit of a difference for the Seahawks, is Tom Cable, a specific way of blocking. They have a specific style that they play, so you want guys who are familiar with that zone blocking skill, and I imagine they're going to be, if it's a deep draft, there are going to be guys like that, because he talked at length about there being a learning curve for guys to learn his system. Now, of course, you talk about J.R. Sweezy as the second, seventh-round draft pick on the offensive line who's been able to master the system, come in and play. Anthony Bowie did it as well last year. So that's a little bit, I'm not going to say it takes a little bit of the enthusiasm away, but that's one of those positions where I think the Seahawks really do look for a specific type of player. And the fact that it's a deep position probably makes it more likely that one of those guys is there, and is a guy who can come in and play right away.
Yeah, and listen, what even more so than the offensive line being deep, which is great to hear, it's great to hear that the draft is that deep, that that seems to be a consensus amongst those that follow that for a living, and that's their area of focus, because the Seahawks, as we've seen, have just absolutely capitalized later in the draft, and perhaps this will be a year where they trade away their number one pick and accumulate picks and can really address potential areas of need, whether it is that offensive line, whether it is wide receiver, even though they picked up a wide receiver from the CFL. So any areas just to add to the depth. Maybe they're not starters, but just to add to the depth, because this is a Super Bowl winning team. It seems like a great year for them.
Especially in a year where they're probably not going to have a lot of cap room for free agents. All good news for the Seahawks, as always.